Nipsey Hussle was taken from the world in 2019, but years later, people are still asking a chilling question. Why does it feel like the attacks on his legacy never truly stopped? Why would someone allegedly target not just his murals, not just his name, but even the place where he was laid to rest? Today, we're not talking about random social media rumors or graffiti on some forgotten wall. We're talking about the reported disappearance of Nipsey Hussle's grave marker, the actual monument placed where Ermias Askedam was buried. And when Black Sam, Nipsey's older brother and one of the few people who always stayed close to the truth, finally addressed the issue, it forced people to revisit everything. His murder, the vandalized murals, the street politics, the tension that seemed to follow Nipsey even after death. So ask yourself this: can a man still be considered a threat, even after he's gone? Because for Nipsey Hussle, the answer may be yes. Nipsey was murdered on March 31, 2019, outside his own Marathon clothing store in South Los Angeles. It wasn't in some distant city. It wasn't while he was hiding behind security or living far from the people who knew him. He was standing in front of the very business he built himself, in the same neighborhood where he grew up. That detail matters, because Nipsey could have left long before that day. He had the money. He had the fame. He had the respect of major artists, athletes, and business leaders. He had opportunities far beyond Crenshaw. But he stayed. Why? Because for Nipsey, success meant nothing if it didn't reach the people who came from the same struggle. He believed ownership was the real victory. He believed buying back the block mattered more than simply escaping it. That's what made him different. He wasn't just another rapper talking about the streets after leaving them behind. He was trying to rebuild those streets from the inside. When he died, Los Angeles stopped. His funeral procession stretched for nearly 25 miles across the city. Streets were lined with people crying, praying, and holding signs with his face. More than 20,000 people came out to honor him. Strangers stood shoulder to shoulder with family. People who had never agreed on anything stood together that day. Even members of rival gangs, Crips and Bloods, stood side by side. For a moment, it looked like peace was possible. Many people believed Nipsey's death would force change. That maybe his passing would become the thing that finally pushed the city toward unity. But did it? Or was that peace only temporary, a moment of silence before the noise returned? Because not long after Nipsey was buried, the disrespect began. And to understand why, you have to understand exactly who he was. Born Ermias Joseph Askedam on August 15, 1985, Nipsey grew up in south-central Los Angeles. His father was from Eritrea, his mother African American. That dual identity shaped him deeply. He often spoke proudly about his Eritrean roots while remaining fully connected to the reality of growing up in South Central. Life there was not easy. The streets taught lessons early. Survival came before dreams. Respect was often the difference between life and death. Like many young men in that environment, Nipsey became tied to the rolling 60s neighborhood Crips. And unlike many celebrities, he never tried to erase that chapter of his life. That part of his story was never separate from his success. It shaped it. He didn't pretend he came from somewhere else. He didn't rewrite history to make people comfortable. Instead, he spoke honestly about it and tried to transform it. That honesty earned him respect. Long before his Grammy-nominated album Victory Lap made him a mainstream star, Nipsey had already become a legend in independent music. He sold mixtapes from the trunk of his car. He built his fan base without waiting for major labels to approve him. Then came the move that shocked everyone. He released his Crenshaw mixtape and sold physical copies for $100 each. Most people laughed. Who would pay that much for a mixtape? But Nipsey understood value differently. He wasn't selling music. He was selling ownership of an idea. He printed only 1,000 copies. They sold out. Even people like Jay-Z bought in, publicly supporting the move. That moment changed everything. But music was only part of the mission. Nipsey was buying property, opening businesses, investing in real estate around Slauson and Crenshaw. He launched Vector 90, a co-working space and STEM center designed to help young people gain access to technology and opportunity. He wanted the next generation to think beyond survival. He was building ownership where most people only saw struggle. And perhaps the most powerful part? Just days before his death, he was preparing to meet with the LAPD to discuss gang intervention and violence prevention. Think about that. A man once shaped by gang culture was now trying to help others escape it. He wasn't preaching from a distance. He knew the pain because he had lived it. That was the man who got killed. And some people believe that same resentment, the same tension between progress and street loyalty, never ended. Because in Los Angeles, gang politics run deeper than music headlines. This isn't entertainment. This is decades of territory, bloodshed, revenge, and loyalty passed down like inheritance. To the world, Nipsey was a successful artist and entrepreneur. But to many people in the streets, he was still something else. He was still a 60s. And for certain blood factions, that mattered more than fame ever could. The first major warning sign came only weeks after his murder. In May 2019, Nipsey's mural near Slauson and Crenshaw, close to the place where he built everything, was vandalized. Someone sprayed Capone NK across it in bright red paint. For people unfamiliar with gang language, NK means neighborhood killer, a direct and deeply personal insult aimed at neighborhood Crips. And the color red, that carried its own message. This wasn't random tagging by some bored teenager. This was intentional. It was written across Nipsey's face. People in the neighborhood understood immediately what it meant. His close friend Cowboy stood in front of that damaged mural, visibly emotional, asking a painful question. How do you disrespect the dead like that? How do you look at someone who tried to help the community and still choose hatred? The community quickly repaired the mural. But then something happened that made everything worse. Within 24 hours, it was vandalized again. That changed the conversation. Now people knew this wasn't an accident. It wasn't one reckless act. It was a message. And the message seemed brutally clear. We don't care how famous he became. We don't care about peace marches. To us, he was still the enemy. That shook people. Because if someone's death couldn't end the conflict, what could? And then things became even darker. In July 2021, a young man known online as Indian Red Boy, real name Zirael Rivera, was sitting in his car during an Instagram live session. He looked relaxed, talking casually with a friend named Capone, the same name many people linked to the mural vandalism. People were watching live. Then chaos exploded. Gunfire rang out. Indian Red Boy was shot multiple times while still on camera. His final moments played out in front of viewers who could do nothing but watch. The internet erupted. People immediately connected the shooting to Nipsey's mural disrespect. Rumors spread fast. Some claimed it was retaliation. Others said the story was more complicated. Police described it as a targeted gang-related shooting, but the public had already formed its own conclusions. Whether every rumor was true or not, one fact remained impossible to ignore. People had already died over Nipsey's memory. His name still carried consequences. And then came the mystery surrounding his gravesite. Nipsey was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Court of Liberty section. Fans expected a powerful memorial. Something permanent. Something worthy of the man they believed changed lives. But over time, visitors noticed something strange. His grave appeared almost unmarked. No large visible tombstone. No grand monument. No obvious inscription for fans to gather around. Just flowers. An open patch of ground. A quiet space that felt unfinished. Videos from 2022 showed people standing there confused, asking the same question. Where is Nipsey's marker? Even into early 2025, fans continued posting videos saying the same thing. Why did it still look unmarked? Was it intentional for privacy? Was the family protecting the site from vandalism? Or had something happened behind the scenes? Then reports surfaced that a proper tombstone had finally been placed sometime in 2024. People felt relief. At last, there was something visible. Something permanent. But that relief didn't last long. By late 2025, new claims started spreading. People visiting the site said the marker was gone. Removed. Missing. Destroyed. And suddenly, the questions returned stronger than ever. Was it vandalism? Was it removed by the cemetery for security reasons? Did the family request privacy? Or was someone still trying to erase Nipsey, even now? That's when Black Sam finally addressed the issue. And when Sam speaks, people listen. Because unlike the internet, Sam doesn't move with rumors. He protects family first. He protects truth first. His silence over the years made people respect his words even more. So when he spoke about the disrespect surrounding Nipsey's legacy, it hit differently. It reminded people that grief never ended for the family. While the world debated theories online, they were still living the reality. Still visiting the grave. Still protecting the name. Still carrying the weight. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. Nipsey spent his life trying to build something stronger than violence. He preached ownership, discipline, patience, and community. His famous phrase, "The marathon continues," wasn't just branding, it was philosophy. Keep going. Keep building. Keep believing. But even after death, the battle around his name never fully stopped. Why? Because maybe real change threatens people more than success ever does. Maybe a man who proves the streets can be transformed becomes more dangerous than one who simply escapes them. Maybe Nipsey represented something certain people could never accept, a blueprint for a different future. Even years after his death, the name Nipsey Hussle still carries a weight that few artists ever achieve. It's more than music, more than fame, more than celebrity. For many people, Nipsey became a symbol of hope, ownership, discipline, and change. He represented something rare, a man who made it out, but chose to come back and build where he came from instead of simply leaving it behind. And maybe that is exactly why his legacy still creates so much tension. Because if that's true, then the attacks on his murals, the violence tied to his memory, and even the disturbing mystery surrounding his grave marker all point to the same uncomfortable truth. Some people were never just angry at Nipsey Hussle the rapper. They were angry at what he stood for. Hope. Ownership. Transformation. And that raises one final question that still lingers like smoke in the air. If a man's legacy can still make people feel threatened years after his death, did he ever really lose? Or does that prove just how powerful he truly was? For Nipsey Hussle, maybe the marathon never stopped at all. Maybe it simply changed form. And that question changed everything. Was his grave marker quietly removed for maintenance, or did someone deliberately target Nipsey's final resting place? That mystery pulled people back into a conversation many thought had already ended. Fans began revisiting old photos. Videos resurfaced online. Social media filled with side-by-side comparisons of his gravesite. Some claimed the marker had been moved temporarily. Others believed something much darker had happened. And in the middle of all that speculation, attention turned toward one man people trusted more than almost anyone else close to Nipsey. Black Sam. Sam Asghedom, better known as Black Sam, is Nipsey's older brother, protector of the family legacy, and one of the few people who has remained steady through all the chaos. He isn't someone who seeks attention. He doesn't jump into internet drama. He rarely gives interviews. And that silence is exactly why people pay attention when he finally decides to speak. Because when Black Sam talks, it usually means something serious is being addressed. In a major interview with Big Boy, Sam opened up about the day Nipsey was killed. What he revealed made people look at the entire tragedy through a different lens. He explained that security around the Marathon clothing store normally followed a strict routine. There were supposed to be visible team members at the entrance. Armed. Alert. Present. Not to intimidate, but to deter. Everyone knew the environment. Everyone understood the risks. The area wasn't unfamiliar with tension, and Nipsey's presence there always required awareness. That system existed for a reason. But on the day Nipsey was murdered, something was different. That protocol failed. The doorway was empty. No visible security. No immediate barrier. No warning. That absence became one of the most discussed details in the entire case. How could that happen on that particular day? Was it simply bad timing? A mistake? Or something more calculated? Then Black Sam shared another detail, one that made the situation feel even more unsettling. He described what he had been told about the shooter's movements before the attack. According to that account, a man first approached the area without a shirt on, almost as if he were checking the environment. looking, watching, measuring. Then he left. Later, he reportedly returned, this time wearing a red shirt. He came through the alley. And then, in a moment that changed everything, the gunshots rang out. But here's the question that still lingers. Was it really just a random act of violence, or something far more calculated? In that neighborhood, even something as simple as a color can carry weight. A red shirt isn't always just fashion. It can signal identity, allegiance, even intent. Nipsey Hussle's brother, known as Black Sam, raised a possibility that many found unsettling. What if that detail wasn't random at all? What if it pointed to something deeper, something organized? So let's ask honestly, are these isolated incidents, or pieces of a larger puzzle? The internet certainly didn't treat them as separate. Old interviews resurfaced. Surveillance footage was dissected frame by frame. People debated everything: motives, loyalties, silence. Because Nipsey wasn't just building wealth. He was changing the mindset. And that kind of shift can make people uncomfortable. Think about that for a moment. A man who gave so much to his community, and even his farewell became a struggle. And yet, years later, even his gravesite has become part of the conversation. How does that happen? How does someone who invested so deeply in his community end up with questions surrounding his final resting place? The answer may not be easy to accept. That message was powerful. But power, especially when it challenges old systems, can feel threatening. So ask yourself, what happens when people start believing that? For some, it's inspiring. For others, it's disruptive. And sometimes, when a message challenges deeply rooted beliefs, the messenger becomes a target. That possibility is difficult to ignore. Because it suggests his death may not have been just about a disagreement, it may have been about what he symbolized. A shift. A new direction. A future not everyone was ready to embrace. Today, Black Sam continues to carry that weight. Protecting the Marathon brand. Guarding the vision. Ensuring that Nipsey's story is told with integrity. He's reportedly working on projects that will present that story properly. And one thing he's made clear is that he won't give up creative control. Why? Because for him, this isn't business. It's legacy. Imagine living with that responsibility. Losing someone so publicly, then spending years defending their name, their image, even their resting place. That kind of burden doesn't fade. It becomes part of your life. And maybe that leads to a bigger question, one worth reflecting on. What does it say about us when we struggle to protect the memory of those who tried to uplift us? When murals are defaced, when graves become talking points, when respect fades after the headlines disappear, it reveals something deeper. Something unresolved. It suggests that the very cycle Nipsey was trying to break might still be continuing. Because legacy isn't preserved through hashtags or tributes alone. It's preserved through action. Through respect. Through living the values that person stood for. And maybe that's where Nipsey's true impact still lives. Because years later, people are still talking. Still questioning. Still reflecting. That doesn't happen with ordinary influence. It happens when someone becomes an idea. And ideas are much harder to bury. So perhaps the real question isn't whether Nipsey lost. Maybe it's this: was the world ready for what he was building? And if the conflict continues even after death, what does real peace actually look like? Is it silence? Or is it finally living the message he left behind? Ownership, growth, discipline, community. Maybe that's the real marathon. And maybe, in a way, he never stopped running it.